A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, Episode 5, is the battle for Dunk's life. Dunk defeats Arian, but Prince Baelor, Sir Harding, and Sir Beesbury die. The episode also has a surprising flashback to Dunk's childhood. So what happens, what does it mean, and how does the show compare to the books? This video has no spoilers, except for the spoiler zone at the end of this video. Dunk was accused of attacking Prince Arian and kidnapping Prince Egg. This trial by combat decides if Dunk is guilty. In tournament combat, knights use blunted weapons. They're not meant to kill each other. But in this trial, the knights use deadly weapons. They are fighting to kill. Dunk's team fights Arian's team, and the fight ends when either Dunk or Arian surrender or die. Dunk's team has some great fighters. Lionel Baratheon and Prince Baelor are some of the best warriors alive. But Arian's team has Prince Maekar and Prince Arian and 3 Kingsguard knights. Dunk met Roland and Donal of the Kingsguard in Episode 2. And the Kingsguard are said to be the best knights in the realm. So Baelor has a plan. The Kingsguard are sworn to protect the royal family. So Donal, Roland, and Willem aren't allowed to hurt Prince Baelor. So Baelor says that he'll attack the Kingsguard and take them out while they can't fight back. Robin suggests it's dishonorable to exploit the Kingsguard's vows. But Baelor is willing to be a bit dishonorable and to bend the rules to win. In the fight, the Kingsguard kill Sir Harding and Sir Beesbury in the first charge. So Baelor's Kingsguard plan doesn't work so good in the show. In the book, Baelor has another sneaky strategy. In this fight, the knights are expected to use war lances, which are designed to kill. But Baelor says that their team will use tourney lances instead. Tourney lances are less deadly, they're designed to break. But tourney lances are longer than war lances, so Baelor's team will knock Arian's team off their horses before they're close enough to strike. So Baelor has a reputation as a fair and honourable knight. He's called the soul of chivalry. But in reality, Baelor does use sneaky strategies to win. Is it right to bend the rules if it's for a good cause? Lionel says that Baelor's mother must have loved him best, and that men who are neglected by their mothers fight more fiercely. This is a very weird thing to say to a prince before a battle. But it's true that Baelor seems confident and emotionally secure, while his brother Maekar seems insecure and angry. Maekar feels jealous of Baelor because Baelor is more powerful, more popular. Baelor's sons are better behaved than Maekar's sons. Maekar feels hurt that Baelor is fighting against him and his sons in this trial. Maybe Maekar does feel that their mother Miria loved Baelor more. Perhaps Maekar's anger and jealousy makes him fight harder. And maybe that's why Maekar kills Baelor in this fight, even if it is an accident. This episode also explores how Dunk never had a mother. Maybe Dunk's feelings of abandonment make him fight fiercely. Diana Dane, the mother of Egg, Arian, and Darren, is also dead. The title of this episode is In the Name of the Mother. All these motherless men are fighting and swearing oaths in the mother's name, but none of their mothers are here to be seen. Maybe what they really need is a mother's love. Dunk and Raymond are terrified to fight in this deadly battle. They're so nervous that they puke. Dunk's puke is brown, but Raymond's puke is red, like he's been drinking wine. Dunk's actor Peter Claffey puked from anxiety when he met with the showrunner of this show. This show has now added poop, spit, a burp, a fart, and 4 pukes to this story. Egg gives Dunk his lance, just like Egg practiced earlier. This is what Egg wanted all along, to be a squire to a knight. Egg thought that this would be fun and exciting, but now it's just scary and dangerous. Egg's new friend Dunk might die. Egg's dream has come true, but it's not how he thought it would be. Dunk jokes that he'll hunt Egg with dogs, and Egg playfully woofs. This is a callback to their earlier joke, and it affirms their friendship. A Septon says a prayer. Septons are the priests of the Faith of the Seven religion. The Septon asks the gods to make the guilty knights lose and make the innocent knights win. The Septon calls this trial a bloody offering, so that death sustains life, almost like it's a human sacrifice. The knights line up for a cavalry charge. Dunk charges Arian, Baelor charges his brother Makar, Lionel charges Donal of the Kingsguard, Raymond charges his cousin Stefan, Robin charges Prince Darren, Harding charges a Kingsguard, and Beesbury charges a Kingsguard. Raymond has new heraldry on his shield. Instead of the red Fossaway apple, Raymond has a green Fossaway apple. In the book he explains that he wants to be different to his treacherous cousin Stefan. He would rather be an unripe green apple than a rotten, wormy red apple. Robin Riesling is the mad, one-eyed knight. Robin wears chainmail over his missing eye, and Robin doesn't wear a helmet in this fight, which is either very brave or very crazy. So Dunk's team has some weirdos and underdogs, while Arian's team is mostly princes and Kingsguard. Dunk is an absolute nobody fighting against the most privileged and powerful men in the realm. The knights all charge into battle except for Dunk, who is frozen with fear and anxiety. So Egg shouts at the horse Thunder to go, just like Egg had practiced with Thunder earlier. Dunk rides into battle, and he's instantly wounded by Arian's lance. Dunk's shield breaks. Dunk went to so much effort to get Tanzel to repaint the shield, and then Pate reinforced the shield. Maybe Pate's reinforcement helps save Dunk here. But the beautiful shield falls to the mud. Arian knocks Dunk to the ground, and Dunk is hit so hard that his whole life flashes before his eyes. Dunk has a flashback to his childhood, with his friend Rafe and his mentor Arlen. This flashback isn't in the books, it's invented for the show. The flashback follows young Dunk about 13 years ago. Dunk is an orphan. He never knew his parents, and he lives in the slums of Flea Bottom in King's Landing. Flea Bottom is where Davos and Gendry and Carl Fucking Tanner are from. The books describe Flea Bottom as a maze of alleyways that stink of pigs and horses, of cheap wine sinks and whorehouses, a place of the poor and desperate. The books say that young Dunk begs and steals to survive. Sometimes Dunk beats up other kids and takes their stuff. He lives more like an animal than like a boy. Dunk catches rats and pigeons and sells them to potshops who make them into soup. One time, Dunk and his friends threw a severed human head into a soup pot. And that's about as much as we know about young Dunk in the books, but the show expands the story. We see young Dunk on a battlefield. This seems to be the Redgrass Field, the final battle in the Blackfire Rebellion. This is when Daemon Blackfire fought a war against his half-brother King Daemon Targaryen, the current king. There were many battles all across Westeros, but it ended here at the Redgrass, where Baelor and Makar and Bloodraven defeated Daemon Blackfire. You can see King's Landing in the background. The books don't say where the Redgrass was, but George Martin's co-author said the Redgrass is near King's Landing. The books describe the violence and the glory of the Redgrass. Now we see the ugly aftermath. There isn't even any grass left at the Redgrass. We see a Lannister banner. This looks like an Osgry banner, and this soldier is a Frey. Most of the great houses supported King Daemon Targaryen. The Lannisters, Arryns, Tullys, and Tyrells were all loyalists. The Blackfire rebels included the Brackens, Peaks, Costains, and Shawneys, more minor houses who were hoping to gain power. 10,000 men died in this battle, but they say that the sunset was beautiful. Dunk came to scavenge this battlefield. He takes horseshoes to sell. Dunk is startled by this dying Frey soldier. Dunk can't save the Frey, so Dunk starts to suffocate him, to mercy kill this man. It seems like Dunk might have done this before. This young boy has seen death and violence on the streets. Dunk is stopped by his friend Rafe. The books mention that Dunk had friends called Ferret, Rafe, and Pudding. These friends were little monsters, and Dunk was the worst of them. Dunk remembers that they used a severed human head to terrorize the girls in Flea Bottom. It sounds like Rafe is a boy in the book, not a girl. In the show, Rafe looks a bit like Tanzel, and maybe that's part of why Dunk likes Tanzel, why he saves her. Dunk couldn't save his friend Rafe, but he can save Tanzel. Rafe hopes to make money from the fray, but he dies. Rafe says the fray is highborn, so they should pray for him. But Dunk doesn't know the words to any prayers. Dunk said the same thing over Arlen's body in episode 1. Rafe suggests that highborn people can go to heaven, but that she and Dunk will go to hell. Dunk and Rafe have been told all their lives that they are worthless gutter rats. They seem to really believe that they are worse and less than other people. So even now, it's a struggle for Dunk to believe in himself, to rise above the stigma of his humble origins. Dunk and Rafe walk back to King's Landing. This tree-lined path is the same place that we see Arya in Game of Thrones. Rafe playfully wears a helmet, like when Arya playfully wears a helmet. It's also the same path we see Brienne and Podrick in Game of Thrones. Dunk and Egg are very similar to Brienne and Pod, the brave knight, who's technically not a knight, and their plucky young squire. Author George Martin reportedly said that Dunk is Brienne's ancestor. We see a Stokeworth bringing a body back from the battlefield. The Stokeworths are a minor house near King's Landing. Bronn almost marries a Stokeworth in Game of Thrones. When Dunk and Rafe see the Stokeworth, they hide. As poor street urchins, they see adults as dangerous. They don't trust anyone. And that's why Dunk's trust with Rafe, and with Arlen than with Egg, is so precious. Dunk hopes that things will be better now that the Blackfire Rebellion is over. He says the Black Dragon is dead. The Black Dragon is a nickname for the rebel Daemon Blackfire. Daemon was killed by Bloodraven's arrows on the Redgrass. But Rafe says that violence is a never-ending cycle. She says their friend Pudding accidentally killed someone, so then a guy called Cedric tried to kill Pudding. Violence begats violence. Game of Thrones often explores cyclical, intergenerational conflict. The name Cedric might be a reference to a character in Ivanhoe, the movie that inspired this story. The original Ivanhoe book actually invented the name Cedric. King's Landing is full of people suffering from the war. Dunk and Rafe face a man named Alistair. Alistair is missing a hand, and he says he used to have quick hands. So maybe Alistair was a thief, and his hand was cut off as punishment, or maybe Alistair lost his hand in the war. Alistair is in the City Watch, the Gold Cloaks, but he's corrupt, using his power to take from the poor and powerless. Dunk and Rafe escape Alistair, and Rafe impulsively steals Alistair's aleskin. Dunk and Rafe sell their scavenged battlefield stuff to a blacksmith, but the blacksmith refuses to buy a piece of Blackfire leather. The symbol of the Blackfire rebels is a black dragon, and it can be dangerous to own traitors' objects, because people might think that you are a traitor. Even for years after the war, Blackfire sympathizers remain. Rafe and Dunk get 2 silver coins. Rafe wants to use the money to leave King's Landing, to sail east to the Free Cities. The Free Cities include Bravos, Pentos, and Volantis, which we see in Game of Thrones. Rafe wants to have adventures. Again, she's like Arya. But Dunk is reluctant to leave. The dying Frey called for his mother, and Dunk hopes to find his mother. He doesn't know what happened to his parents. But Rafe says you can't just wait around for good things to come to you. If you want a family, you have to make a family. Dunk and Rafe aren't related, but they love each other like family. Dunk and Arlen become like family, and Dunk and Egg are like family. Dunk's friends are so precious to him because they're all he has. Dunk and Rafe can't sail east because the price for a ship has increased. Then Alistair and his crony steal Dunk and Rafe's money. Alistair says that Dunk and Rafe are poor gutter rats, and gutter rats aren't allowed to take from dead nobles. That's stealing. But Alistair can take from Dunk and Rafe because they're poor. That's life. It's the blunt, cruel injustice of an unequal, hierarchical world. Rafe takes Alistair's knife, then Alistair kills Rafe. Dunk attacks Alistair, his crony stabs Dunk's leg, then Dunk is rescued by Arlen. Arlen was drinking in a nearby pub. He bursts out and shouts, "In the name of the mother." The mother is one of the gods in the faith of the Seven. The mother gives love and protection and mercy. Dunk and the Frey and Lionel all evoke mothers this episode. Arlen is super drunk, but he kills the Goldcloaks in an ugly, brutal fight. This is when Dunk learns what it means to be a true knight, to protect the innocent. Arlen is a drunk old fool. It was probably foolish for him to kill 2 city watchmen to help some street kid. Arlen was so drunk that he barely knew what he was doing, but it was a heroic act. Arlen's impulsive, idealistic heroism is like Dunk saving Tanzil, like Florian the Fool. Arlen had a squire, his nephew Roger. They fought in the Battle of the Redgrass Field for the Targaryens, and Roger was killed by a rebel lord. We see a grave for Roger, with a helmet with a dent in it. Arlen's nephew might have died in that helmet. So maybe Arlen is drinking because he's grieving Roger's death. He's processing the trauma of the war in his own eccentric way. Arlen sings a Dothraki song. The Dothraki are the Eastern horse people who Daenerys joins. The Game of Thrones linguist David J. Peterson posted a translation of the song, and the lyrics are about grief and sorrow, overcoming enemies with courage and mercy. We don't know how Arlen learned a Dothraki song, but in the books there are Dothraki mercenaries in Westeros, and Arlen is a mercenary who might hang out with foreign sellswords, so maybe he learned the song from a Dothraki. Arlen needs a new squire, and Dunk needs a new friend and protector. So Dunk follows Arlen from a distance at first. It's like how Podrick follows Brienne. Dunk holds Arlen's helmet, just like Egg holds the helmet in episode 1. And Dunk sharpens a stick, like Egg sharpens a stick. Dunk and Arlen's relationship is much like Dunk and Egg's relationship. Eventually, Dunk collapses, and Arlen tells him, "Get up." Because when you have nothing and the world's against you, all you can do is get up and keep fighting. Dunk got up out of Flea Bottom. He got up after Rafe died. So now in the present, in the Trial of 7, Dunk gets up. None of that flashback is in the books. In the books, Dunk is only about 6 years old when he meets Arlen. So the timeline is different. Dunk is older in the show. But in the book, when Dunk goes down in the trial, he feels despair. He thinks that he's not even a knight, that he's nothing. But Dunk somehow finds the strength to keep fighting. The show explores how Dunk got his strength, from Rafe, and from Arlen, and from Egg, from the people who he loves. It shows how loss and adversity in Flea Bottom built his resolve to keep fighting no matter what. The book says that Aerion could defeat Sir Duncan the Tall, because Duncan is not a skilled knight, but Aerion could not defeat Dunk of Flea Bottom, because Dunk of Flea Bottom knows how to fight dirty. Dunk knows that Egg needs him just as he needed Arlen and Rafe, and Dunk knows that when you're down, you get up. Dunk dodges Aerion's Morningstar. The correct historical term for this weapon might be flail, but the author calls it a Morningstar, a more poetic word. Maekar hits Dunk in the head. Steely Pate's helmet saves Dunk. Like Pate said, the helmet is plain but strong, unlike the Lars fancy helmet on Baelor that fails to save Baelor. Baelor protects Dunk by knocking Maekar off his horse. Aerion gets on top of Dunk, but then Raymond hits Aerion off. Dunk is repeatedly saved by his friends. Dunk is bigger and stronger than Aerion, but Aerion is a more skilled fighter. Aerion's fast and brutal, and he wounds Dunk badly. Dunk takes a lance to the torso, a knife in his hand and his side, a sword in his leg, a cut to his eye, and eventually Dunk collapses. It looks like he's dead. Until Egg shouts at Dunk to get up. Dunk has a vision of Arlen saying, "Get up." Dunk's bonds with Arlen and Egg give him the strength to fight on. So Dunk gets up, and he overwhelms Aerion with raw strength. This is no fancy knightly swordplay, this is Dunk of Flea Bottom kicking ass. We hear the crowd cheering for Dunk. In the book, small folk thank Dunk for being a true knight, for saving Tanzil. Dunk was once a poor, exploited street kid. Now he's a hero of the people, sticking up for the commoners against the princes. Arian's father, Makar, tries to save Arian. Makar is frustrated with his chaotic, awful son, but he still wants to protect his boy. The show adds Makar yelling, my boy, but Baelor and Lionel keep Makar away from Dunk. In the book, Baelor, Makar, and Lionel fight with mace, longsword, and battle axe. Makar has the mace, and Lionel has a sword, so it seems like Baelor might use a battle axe in the book. Dunk beats Arian until he surrenders. In the book, Dunk wants to pop one of Arian's eyes. Dunk is tempted to kill Arian, but he decides to be an honorable knight, and he spares Arian. In the book, there's a moment where Arian sneakily tries to keep fighting after he surrendered, which is very dishonorable. Dunk drags the prince through the mud. Prince Arian Brightflame thinks he's so superior and untouchable. In the book, he dresses colorfully. He's called the Bright Prince, but the mud leaves him brown as a privy. Arian withdraws his accusation, and Dunk is saved. Dunk wins the trial. He's considered innocent. After Arian surrenders, we see Makar hit Baelor. This might be the blow that kills Baelor, and tragically, it happens after the trial is over. Baelor didn't need to die. Throughout the trial, we see the other knights fighting in the background. It looks like Raymond mostly fights Stefan. Previously, Stefan seemed more skilled than Raymond, but this time Raymond holds his own. Robin presumably knocks Darren off his horse. Darren promised to stay down and not fight. In the book, Darren's foot might be broken because he gets stepped on by his own horse. Lionel and Robin fight against the Kingsguard. In the book, the Kingsguard Willem is injured and carried from the field, so presumably Lionel or Robin defeat some Kingsguard, which frees Lionel up to fight Makar. We see Makar knock Lionel off his horse. There's still a Kingsguard mounted at the end of the trial. Robin must have kept him busy. The mad one-eyed knight performs well. Maybe he really is a vessel of the warrior. Dunk is badly hurt. Pate says they should pour boiling oil in Dunk's wounds. But Baelor says that's wrong, you meant to use boiling wine. So Baelor saves Dunk again. Dunk asks if the other knights are okay. Even while Dunk is badly wounded, he's concerned for other people, not just himself. And Baelor is similar. Baelor sends his own maester to heal other people instead of himself. Baelor and Dunk heroically protect others. In the book, Dunk was worried about Darren's dream, that a dragon, a Targaryen, would die. So now he's relieved that the Targaryens are alive. It seems that the dream didn't come true. Dunk asks to serve Baelor, because Baelor is a prince who really cares. He's the heir to the throne, and he put his life on the line to protect a random hedge knight. It seems Baelor will be a great king. He's strong and charismatic, wise and moral. He wants good men for the realm. But Baelor's heroism has a cost. In the trial, Baelor's head was smashed by his own brother, Makar, and when Baelor's helmet comes off, he dies. In the book, we see some of Baelor's brain fall out. Dunk says get up, like Egg and Arlen said get up, but Baelor doesn't get up. Prince Baelor Breakspear Targaryen died for Dunk of Flea Bottom. Darren's dream of a dead Targaryen did come true, and this changes the future of Westeros. Now Prince Valar is next in line for the throne, and Dunk has to live with the knowledge that the great Baelor Breakspear died for him. It's prophesied that the White Walkers will be defeated by a hero called Azor Ahai. Azor Ahai was inspired by a real-world god who shares a name with one of these Japanese car manufacturers. Can you guess which of these car brands is named after the god that inspired Azor Ahai? To learn the answer, listen to this week's Dunk Time. On Dunk Time, AltShiftX and Glidus discuss every episode of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms, with occasional delightful tangents. Dunk Time 6 will come out right after the A Night of the Seven Kingdoms finale airs, on Nebula. Nebula also has videos about every episode of House of the Dragon, and a 22-hour-long video about Jon Snow. You can listen to all of these as audio on podcast apps with the Nebula podcast feed. This is over 67 hours of exclusive Alt and Glidus videos, plus exclusive videos from hundreds of other great creators. Nebula is an independent, creator-owned site, and signing up helps support Alt-Shift-X. With my link, you can get 50% off an annual subscription, making the price just $30 for a year. Sign up at nebula.tv/Alt-Shift-X or nebula.tv/Alt-Swift-X if you're a rotten, wormy fossilway. Now let's talk spoilers. Rafe says that the Blackfire Rebellion isn't over. She says violence always leads to more violence. And she's right. After the first Blackfire Rebellion, there are 4 more rebellions, where Daemon Blackfire's descendants attack again. Even in the time of the main book series, there's another character attacking Westeros who might be a Blackfire. He's called Young Griff. We talk about this in our Varys video. Rafe says that King's Landing is tinder, like it could burn any minute. This is a metaphor for violence, but it's also true that King's Landing will literally burn. In the books, after the Ashford tournament, there's a plague that kills thousands of people in King's Landing. The plague kills King Daeron Targaryen, and kills Prince Valar and his brother, so Daeron's second son Aerys becomes king. The Hand of the King, Bloodraven, burns the dead plague victims, but the fire gets out of control and burns down a quarter of King's Landing. 70 years later, the Mad King Aerys Targaryen II tries to burn King's Landing, and later in the TV show, Daenerys burns King's Landing. So Rafe was right, the Blackfire rebellions continue, and King's Landing burns. Thanks for watching. We're making weekly videos and live streams, so please like and subscribe. Thank you to the supporters on Nebula, and thank you to the patrons, including Alex Downs, Ruben Rautenberg, Ambrose Haas, Carlo Montisa, Callum Banks, Emily Lubomirsky, and Banged Porpoise. Cheers.